Good morning again. We're going to begin our program. Thank you so much for your patience and for coming out on this rainy day to the Mentor Mentee Jobs on Campus Career Development Day. I'm so excited to have you all here. My name is Sofia Oviedo. I'm sure you know me by all the emails that I've been sending you weekly, monthly, giving you updates on the initiative. So I'm so happy to meet all of you here in person. I want to first thank you for your participation in Mentor Mentee Jobs on Campus. This is one of the key initiatives established by President Daisy Coco de Filippis under the support of the Miss Mackenzie Scott's Gift. And I'm just so excited that we've been able to implement this initiative since late spring, summer of last year. And so I wanted to ask, just by a show of hands, how many of you have been mentoring a student since last summer? Oh, okay, pretty much all of you. Wonderful, wonderful. Since we're a small group, I wanted to ask if you could each introduce yourself, tell us your department, and I'm sure you all know each other, but just for my sake, and share the name of your student. So let's start here with this table. Thank you. Thank you all for introducing yourselves. It's wonderful, again, to meet you all and to have you here this morning. But I'll just begin by sharing that this is the third Career Development Day that we have hosted for the Mentor Mentee Jobs on Campus. We've held 2 career development days for our mentees to provide them with professional development and skill building in career readiness competencies. But now that we've continued to develop, and based on the feedback that we're receiving through the surveys that both mentors and mentees are completing, I realized that I wanted to provide mentors with additional guidance and support in terms of the mentoring that they're providing to the students, so that it's structured, so that it's focused on several key areas that will further help students' academic, personal, and professional growth. So that's why we've invited you here, and this is something that we will continue as we continue to implement the initiative going forward. And so I'm glad that you are here as we are going to start the spring session for the Mentor Mentee Jobs on Campus initiative. So I'll just go over some brief housekeeping in terms of the initiative. So I did want to inform all of you that your students that are attending, if they attend today in the afternoon session, they will get paid. You can enter their time on their timesheets. The session starts at 12:30 for students. They'll get lunch, and then they'll have workshops from 1 to 3. So please note that on their timesheets that they will be getting paid for the time that they're attending, any professional development opportunity that we offer them. I also just wanted to also, again, provide the dates for the spring session. The spring session starts on the first day of classes, so January 25th through Friday, May 12th. So through all those weeks, students will be able to work for the spring session, maximum 10 hours a week. In terms of the payroll schedule, I am going to get that from Human Resources and provide email that to you so that you're aware of when timesheets are submitted. But they're on the same pay schedule as most hostel staff. So timesheets need to be submitted the Tuesday of the pay week, and the pay date is Fridays. So for example, this is a pay week, and if you had students that were working the winter session, they worked last week, you should have submitted a timesheet by this past Tuesday, January 17th, if you had any students working the winter session. I know not all students are working winter session. So it's always the Tuesday by noon of the pay week, and the timesheets are submitted to Mr. Albert Lai. So it's a new person that the timesheets are being submitted to. So I just wanted to provide those quick updates. And now I would like to have the opportunity to introduce and welcome the Career Services staff under the leadership of Director Lisanet Rosario and Assistant Director Ivan Rosario Quiroz, who have been just instrumental in from the beginning in providing support to our students, especially when we were recruiting students to apply for the jobs. They helped them develop resumes, cover letters, help them to submit these materials online through the Simplicity portal, and also in providing the professional development workshops for the 2 career development days that we've hosted, and they will also be doing that today. And I also just want to mention the team that will be with us today, supporting us. So with us today will be Lisanet Rosari, the director of the Career Services Office. And the Career Services team will also be providing our students with just an overview of all of the services that they offer. And we encourage you to ensure that the students that you are mentoring take advantage of all of the services that are offered to them. We also have Assistant Director of Career Development, Ivan Rosario Quiroz, who will be providing workshops to our students today. Dulce Toppenberg, Student Career Program Specialist. Aleris Gonzalez, Student Career Senior Advisor. Maritza Lewis, Academic Internship Coordinator. And Yolanda Soto, Student Career Advisor. So in terms of the agenda for our morning session with mentors, I will be going over just specific best practices for developing a supportive and productive relationship with your mentee. I will also would like to engage you in hearing from you about your experiences mentoring students. Then you'll have a presentation by Ms. Rosario on the 8 career readiness competencies and how to relate them to work assignments. And then we will end our morning session with a review of evaluation tools. So I have several. I want to review what we are going to be doing this spring semester, which will be a little different from what we've done over the spring, over the summer and fall. The goals for this morning session, by the end of this session, you will be able to define mentorship and learn about your role as a mentor. You'll learn about the experiences from other supervisors and mentors that are participating in the initiative. You'll also learn how to apply the career readiness competencies to student work tasks, and you'll also explore the evaluation tools. So first, I just want to provide just an overview of what I will be presenting on. I am going to go over just an overview of the initiative, its goals and objectives, which are tied to the evaluation tools that I will be reviewing. I will also discuss some practices for establishing structure and processes for mentoring. I will also review some key mentoring domains that I would like mentors to focus on in their mentoring sessions. And then I will end with mentor and mentee responsibilities for this part of the presentation. So the overarching goal for the mentor-mentee jobs on campus is to provide currently enrolled Hosto students with valuable work experience, on-the-job mentoring, and professional development to promote academic success, career readiness, and future job retention. I do want to make it clear, because I know several of you have asked who's eligible for this, to participate in this initiative. So students, regardless of immigration status, are able to participate in this initiative, and regardless of financial aid status. If you do encounter, you have a student that is, for example, if you have a vacancy and you find a student who may be an international student or undocumented and they are in need of a job, please let me know so that we can arrange for them to be able to participate. So they are eligible. I just wanted to make that clear. Also, in terms of student eligibility, I also just want to provide the key requirements. So students, in order to participate, they need to be enrolled in a Hostos degree program. They can be part-time or full-time, but they need to be enrolled. They need to have a minimum GPA of 2.7. And they also, in order to continue in mentor-mentee jobs on campus, need to maintain at least a minimum 2.7 GPA. And they also need to demonstrate a commitment to engaging in a responsible work assignment and also receiving the mentoring. And just to cover, students are paid a competitive $20 an hour, and they work a maximum of 10 hours a week. So in terms of the goals for the initiative, The primary goals are to engage students in on-campus employment that builds their career readiness in a professional setting, to help them navigate a professional setting and working alongside their colleagues, supervisors, and peers in a professional setting. We also want to foster workplace mentoring that supports students' academic growth and professional development, because we want to ensure that students, while they are working and learning valuable skills, they are still focused on, maintaining, improving their grade point average and really attending to their studies. We also want to improve their career readiness skills, and you are going to be learning about all of the different career readiness competencies that students can further develop through their work assignments. And we also want to prepare and educate students on career planning, how to search for a job, how to prepare a resume, how to prepare for an interview, professional etiquette, life skills. And these will be provided to students through professional development events such as this one. And then we also want to be able to provide peer bonding through group meetings, through these career development days and other opportunities that we will offer students so that they can get to know the other students that are participating in the initiative. So I'm going to go over the program objectives. These are the measurable objectives that we have established in order to ensure that students are really benefiting from their participation in the initiative and are on track in terms of the development of career readiness skills that will help them to secure jobs once they leave Hostos, and will also able to help them in terms of their further education as well. So all of these objectives are also tied to the evaluation tools that you will be using to assess the mentee's progress during their participation in their work assignment and the mentoring sessions. So the first program objective is that students need to maintain a 2.7 GPA or better by the end of the semester. And we will track that by just connecting with the registrar's office to ensure that students are maintaining that GPA. We also want to see that 70% of the enrolled students in the initiative report improvement in 4 or more career readiness competencies, so that they show this improvement from mid-semester to the end of the semester. And when I go over the evaluation tools, you will see how you will be able to just rate students' progress in each of those skills. The next objective seeks feedback from the supervisors. So we also want to look at supervisors reporting student improvement in 4 or more career readiness competencies, again, from mid-semester to end of semester. And we also want to see 80% of enrolled students participate in workshops or services offered by the Career Services offices at least twice during the semester. That can include attending a career development day and also attending other events that the Career Services office holds regularly, whether in person or virtually. And then the next set of objectives have to do with satisfaction with participation in the initiative. So we're looking for 80% of supervisors to report satisfaction with students' work performance, completion of assigned tasks. We're also looking for 80% of enrolled students to report satisfaction with the quality of mentoring support that they've received from their supervisor. And this type of support can include helping the student to reflect on their work experience, the new skills that they've learned, successes that they've experienced on the job, challenges and how they've managed those challenges, and applying feedback that they've received from their supervisor to make improvements to how they're carrying out their job. We also want to see mentors providing guidance to students to support their academic and career goals, and to also connect students to other supportive resources on campus or within the community. So we will be collecting this data by administering surveys to both the students and to the supervisors to assess that level of satisfaction with the quality of mentoring support, and also with supervisor satisfaction with how students are carrying out, performing their assigned tasks. So now I want to just go over some of the foundational practices to help support a strong and productive mentoring relationship. And I know you've already probably done a lot of this foundational work, but I think it's important just so that you are aware of these processes so that you can continue to integrate these processes in your continued mentorship of students. So the first process has to do with getting to know your mentee, getting to know, what are their academic goals, what are their career interests, what are their personal goals, what do they like to do outside of Hostos, what do they do for fun, what are, any, personal challenges that they may be facing that may be affecting their work or their studies. So taking the time to really get to know the student that you are mentoring. And perhaps you've probably all done this in some form or another, but this is like the foundation of building a strong mentoring relationship. Then comes us creating the ground rules for mentoring sessions. So this entails, when and how often the mentoring sessions will occur, the topics that will be discussed at each session, and the expectations for following up on any assignments or action items. And I do want to recommend that the actual mentoring sessions be separate from any supervisory sessions that you may have with a student. I mean, you can combine, because I know time is of the essence, but the mentoring should focus on, a specific aspect of the student's growth, whether it's academic, professional, personal, or helping them to manage, work-life balance, school work-life balance. Because we really want, and this is something that I want to implement from this semester to see how it works, is having structured mentoring sessions where each session, it focuses on a specific topic, and I'll go into more detail on that. And then thirdly, so the focus mentoring session. So like I mentioned, there are 4 specific domains that I want mentors to address in the mentoring sessions throughout the semester: academic support, professional development, personal development, and health and balance. And I will provide you with a template agenda that you can use as a guide for each of these sessions. And what's undergirding these structured mentoring sessions are key mentoring domains. So research has identified key domains of focus in undergraduate student mentoring. And so the first domain is psychological and emotional support. So what does that entail? So that entails listening to your student, listening to what they have to say, how was their day, what are they going through, is there something, some challenge that they're facing that, they need someone to be able to share, providing moral support to the student. Even if it's identifying a problem with a work-related issue that the student is not able to manage a task, how do you help that student manage that task? Or if it's a situation where a student is not, is having a difficulty with a peer, or let's say someone who's coming in for services and they're not handling that well, so how do you help the student to navigate that? So providing that psychological and emotional support. And really building a relationship built on trust and confidentiality, so that the student can feel that they can come to you. I also would recommend that you establish that with your mentee, any areas that they may not want to discuss in terms of their personal lives, that's something that you would address in your mentoring session, so that they're aware that it will be a respectful interaction between the mentor and mentee. But we want to really promote very strong, collegial, and relationships built on trust. And that's where that psychological and emotional support comes in. Then the next domain is support for setting goals and choosing a career path. And so this is really looking at assessing what are the students' strengths and weaknesses? What are their abilities to set academic and career goals? And in this particular mentoring session, you can ask the student, where they are struggling in terms of any classes that they're taking, link them to resources that could help them to improve in their academic coursework. You can also ask them if they've thought about or begun to, focus on career goals and how they will go about achieving them. Mentoring sessions are a good way to help students plan out those steps to achieve that long-term goal that they want to get to. Because sometimes it may seem, oh, that seems so far away. If I want to be, let's say, a doctor, a lawyer, so how do I go about doing that? But through the mentoring session, you can help the student actually lay out the steps that they would need to take in preparation for achieving, that academic goal and that career goal. Also helping the student to reflect on what they are learning through the actual work assignment, and how does that inform their own career interests and where they see themselves in a future career. And how does it align with what they're actually learning at Hostos, if it does align, or how can they even use the skills that they are using in their current work environment to their courses, or use for thinking about a career path that they can follow. And then also helping students think through any decisions or actions that they are making. And if it's, if they take an action or decision that has not benefited them, helping them to see why that is. And what they could do differently. So providing them that type of guidance and support. The third domain is academic subject knowledge, aimed at advancing a student's knowledge relevant to their chosen field. Now, I know that most of the students are working in administrative departments. I know several are in academic departments. So you may not be able to directly provide, let's say, tutoring or really help them improve in a particular academic subject. You may not, but you can definitely help connect the student to the resources on campus if they do have any academic needs and they need tutoring. But also provide them with, I would say, the ability to be able to recognize any areas in courses that they're taking where they need help and advocate for them and help them to also self-advocate. So teaching students how to self-advocate and ask for help and not feel embarrassed or feel bad that they need to ask for help is very important. And that's a key part of the mentoring, to help them to learn how to know that, yes, there is help here at Hostos. They can ask for it. They can just, and guide them to all the steps and not feel that they have to, suffer in silence or feel ashamed or embarrassed or in any type of way, that they can secure the support that they need. And then the last domain is serving as a role model. So this really entails the mentee being able to learn from the mentor by either the mentor modeling just in their daily work, how they engage with their colleagues, how they lead a meeting, how they make a presentation, how they handle a difficult situation, handle a conflict. So this gives the opportunity for the student, the mentee, to observe the mentor in action. And you can also use teachable moments. If a student has encountered how a mentor has handled a difficult situation, let's say in a meeting or with a client or someone who has come in from the community, use that to, discuss with the mentee. Let's discuss what happened in this situation. What did you learn? What did you observe? What does that tell you on how to comport yourself in a professional environment? So using those teachable moments in your daily work life, and also sharing about your own personal life, career trajectory. How did you get to where you are now? So sharing your own personal story, sharing the things that you had to overcome, and how you were able to do that, can serve as encouragement to our mentees to learn about your own personal story to the extent that you feel comfortable sharing, but sharing about how you were able to arrive to the position that you are now. And perhaps you are already doing that, but I want to also just highlight these key domains that will be, we want to be featured in the mentoring sessions. So I've handed out a template for each of the 4 key domains that I've outlined in terms of the structured mentoring sessions that I would like the mentors to implement with their mentees. And these are templates to help guide each mentoring session. So for example, in the academic support mentoring session, you would ask the mentee, for example, what academic goals do you have for this current semester? Have you met with your academic advisor? Are you checking in with your academic advisor? What classes are you doing well in? What subjects are a challenge for you? So these questions are meant to serve as a guide. You can ask your own questions. You don't have to ask all of the questions that are on each template for each domain focus, but I wanted to provide you with the structure and a guide for each of the mentoring sessions that I would like for you to have with your mentees throughout the semester. So I would like for the mentors to be able to at least have one, at a minimum, mentoring session that focus on each of these domains: the academic support, professional development, personal development, health, and balance. And now, if in a particular domain, you can have more than one mentoring session that focuses on that domain. It depends on, you know, where the student is, what their needs are, where they need to grow more in. So you would use your own judgment to determine if you need to continue mentoring sessions in a particular domain where, you know, you can continue to further support the student in. And you would also engage the student in this discussion. You would present the student, we are going to be having structured mentoring sessions that focus on these 4 areas. You know, let's say, what area would you like to focus on first that is, you know, of concern to you or just of more interest to you? So you can begin to focus on that domain and ask these questions of the student. You would, you know, take notes, you know, what you're learning from the student, and also be able to, in response to the students' answers, provide them with action steps that they might take to help address their response, in terms of, like, you know, if they want, let's say, if their academic goal is, oh, I want to, you know, really improve in math. I've been getting C's, but I really want to get a B. So then, okay, so what are the steps then that you would need to take to help you go from a C to a B? And you would discuss that with the mentee. And then hold that mentee accountable for following up on those steps that he, she, or they have said that they would take to achieve that particular goal. And so, you know, that's also an important aspect in accountability, and following up. Just ensuring that students develop that practice of, okay, if I've agreed that I will take these steps to achieve this goal in this area, then I'm going to follow up and do it. And then you will serve as that accountability partner. So I will also email these to you as well, so that you can have them in Word form. But these will be required for this semester, that you at a minimum have a structured mentoring session in each of these domains. You will not need to provide me any documentation or send me back the completed, you know, questions and responses. I will just follow up, as I plan to hold focus groups with the mentors, just to really check in with you all, you know, in small group focus groups, just to hear how this has been going and how this has been helping you and the student. Yes?
Far in the semester do you recommend that we start doing this? Like, when in the semester?
I would say right at the beginning of the semester, after you've, let's say, outlined the mentees, like work assignments, their projects for the semester, what they will be focusing on. I would say at the beginning, lay out these key areas for the mentoring sessions from the beginning. So you can start right from the beginning. You can meet with your mentee and explain, we're going to be having focused mentoring sessions. These are the 4 key areas. We'll have at least one session on each of these areas, and it'll just be, informal. I'll just, check in with you, ask you several questions, in these areas, and help you to, set goals, take specific actions to help you achieve those goals, and work on this together, and then have them determine which one they want to start with. But I would say from the start of the semester.
And I just looked through them. They're phenomenal. I mean, these are great. I mean, this is great to have with our own, my own students. I was looking, so thank you.
Oh no, this is
great.
I found this online from a mentoring resources, and I thought it's so important to because we want to ensure that the mentoring is focused on areas that will support our students in these various ways, and I thought providing that guide will be helpful to you. So no, they just have different numbers of questions. Doesn't mean that you have to ask all these questions. You can ask even your own questions. These are just, for the academic support, I actually just developed those because there was no actual template, so I developed those questions myself. So I just also wanted to leave it open so that, because you might have even better questions. I just provided like very basic questions on academic support. You could ask even more specific questions because you're going to be meeting with your mentee on one-on-one, and you know them by now. And even if you're going to get a new student, you can use these as, just to get you started. And then, of course, use your own judgment and other questions that you also want to ask to support them in these key areas. But they are not weighed one more than the other. Thank you for that question. Okay. Any other question regarding the structured mentoring sessions? Okay, so now I'll go over the mentor responsibilities. Okay, this will help you with the structured mentoring sessions. So also through research on mentoring, I've found some key foundational strategies for mentors. So they are support, challenge, and vision. So mentors create a supportive and constructive learning environment for mentees. That's a key responsibility for mentors. Mentors also provide appropriate levels of challenge to support growth, monitor progress, and provide feedback. And thirdly, vision. Encourage and support mentees in developing a career vision. I also want to say that the Office of Career Services can also provide support in terms of developing career vision. They can help students do that, but I'm thinking maybe we can offer mentors a workshop on how to work with mentees on creating a vision board. I mean, this can be for yourself and also for the mentees. I love vision boards, so I think that would be, we could do it Zoom, make it easy for everyone. So I think helping students just really see themselves in the future and really believe that they can achieve what they envision is so important. Now, our mentees also have responsibilities in the mentor-mentee relationship. And so I just want to highlight ways that you can help your mentee also take part and be, just be responsible as a mentee. So you can help their, when you're going to have a mentoring session, and you've set a time, please let the mentee know to come prepared with any questions that they want to ask ahead of time. Questions that will address any information that they want or need during the mentoring session. So tell them to be prepared with productive, with questions beforehand. You can also guide them in how to develop key listening skills. When you are providing them with information, having them, I don't want to say parrot back, but just tell you what they heard you say so that you're sure that they are listening to what information you're providing them, so that they can listen for that central message, that key message that you're giving them. And you can also help them to build trust-building behaviors such as encouraging, listening, sharing with you any difficulties or challenges they may have, cooperating in. They also need to understand, mentees also need to understand that they have a role in building this relationship, that it is not you just providing them information and asking them questions, but they also need to reciprocate and also respond, as to the best of their ability, and be open and transparent to the extent that they can and want to be, but also be just as engaged and committed to this relationship as the mentor. So it's, a mutual understanding. You can also help the mentees navigate anytime if they have a difference of opinion from you, in terms of, using statements that will help them in other types of situations where they're not using statements that will put the onus on the other person. So they can, for example, use responses if they receive, let's say, some constructive feedback that they are not happy about. They can say, okay, that is a good suggestion, but it doesn't fit me. So helping them to learn to use those types of responses when, they're receiving feedback that may not be what they expected or may not want to hear. And also making sure that they are internalizing the input that the mentor is providing. So like right after the mentoring session, reviewing, asking them, so what have you learned through this mentoring session? And hearing back from them what they've heard. Have they really heard you? Do you need to, maybe repeat something or explain it in a way that they can get it? So just making sure that they're understanding, what they're receiving from you as the mentor. All right, so the next part of our morning session is the opportunity to hear from you what the experience has been so far. So I put together several questions that I'm interested in learning about from you. So I'll go around with the microphone. My first question is, what is one key aspect of the mentoring relationship that you value?
Exactly what you said about modeling for students, being that most of our students are first generation. What I have done in the past is bring my diplomas from colleges, because they don't know that some students don't know that it's a master's, right? They just think that an associate's is the only thing, right? And then you say, no, there's such thing even after the bachelor's, it's a master's, it's a PhD, right? Because they come and they say, oh, I see that you got a master's from the University of Buffalo, right? So modeling, they're first generation, they don't know. They think that an associate is it. So, from the minute they come to my office, right? Camellia, right? So the different things, SUNY, CUNY, private. Camellia went to Fordham. So Camellia talks to them about Fordham. It's right here. It's in the Bronx, right? It's private. Eric went to also private, but in SUNY, right? So it's all that experience being, we model for them that it's all different. It's CUNY, it's private, it's SUNY, but also, just like you said, is the way that we comport ourselves in at work. When you come in late, you call, right? Because that's one thing, right? They come in late, they don't call. So it's all these things that you gotta do once you get a job, So this is it. You got it. This is a job. Just because you're in school, that doesn't mean that this is not a job. This is a real job. So we got to remind them that this is a real job. Although you're working for us, this is real. So it's modeling the behavior that they have to have when they go to the real job, So that's it. But it's been wonderful. I mean, they're excited, not only about the pay, $20, $20. I mean, I tell them like $20, but it's also that they want to help. They feel useful. They feel like, wow, they feel privileged that they got picked to do this job. So, and they want to do their best. And, we are there and we see them, right? Like trying to manage school and work, which is also time management. So it's all these skills that they also, that they're learning. So, that's one of the things.
I have a mentee through the Jobs on Campus program, but I also have other students that work for me that I consider as mentees. I have CUNY Edge students. I have interns from the community health program. And the thing that I value about the mentor-mentee relationship is that I actually learn a lot from them. Sometimes they have information about community resources, or they know about different programs because they hear about it around CUNY or within the community, and they're able to help me help other students. So I value the knowledge that they bring as well.
One of the things that I feel I value the most of this mentor-mentee relationship is being part of the support cabinet. Being that extra person, even though the student has a coach or an advisor from College Discovery or ASAP, right? They also have us as that extra support person that they can come with if they have any issues, and we can also connect them to the resources available on campus or outside of Hostos.
I think I'm just picking back off of Lenny. It's the supportive relationship and the continued relationship, because even after they graduate from here, they will always keep in touch. My last 2 Jobs on Campus employees, one is at Baruch, and he's come to visit, and he keeps me informed of what's going on, what classes he's going to take. So it's that continued relationship. So it's really nice.
All right, so I'll go to the next question. What are the changes that you have observed in the mentee through their participation in mentor-mentee jobs on campus?
Through one of the mentees in our office, I have actually seen her change in her commitment to valuing her position at the office, because I try with each session that she comes into work, I try to give her those teaching moments beyond just answering the telephone at our office. So I try to give her more office skills and understand that that will play a role. We understand that this is not your formal job in terms of your career path, but it's just building, it's a stepping stone. So, you know, I had a conversation with her recently, and with her explaining it to her, she came in with one perspective and she left going, oh, okay. And now she's more committed to seeing why what she does in her participation, she understands why it's important. So a lot of the things that you were talking about, I've already started doing that with one, because I explained to her the days that I'm in person, then it's easier for me to work with her versus when I'm remote, you know? So she is taking more to it. And so I appreciate that she's now like more commitment to it.
So I kind of cheated because I went through the list. I thought so. I mean, of all the 4 of them, when I looked at it on the list, it's one of the biggest things that we find with our students is the development of soft skills, where they're kind of lacking in just those basic things. In dental hygiene, one of the major things is just a matter of showing up, being there on time, treating your patients in a manner of respect and professionalism and all that. So my mentee was amazing because she is one of our leaders in the students. Students are we have students elected group, or we call them executives. So we have a president, a vice president, and she's one of those on the board for our students. So she was one of those that led the students in meeting with the provost to vent the frustrations of our financial needs and things like that. But what I'm trying to say is that, you know, by meeting with them and just pushing them towards that soft skill, to me, answers all 4 of those for me, right? Because it kind of shows that the relationship I had with her, pushing her through this idea of developing the soft skills and making her aware that you have this ability, you just need to kind of bring it forth. And it was just amazing watching her in the meeting with the provost, the way she kind of expressed herself representing our student body, you know, in our needs. So I think that in all 4 of those is what the soft skills is what really brought it out. So
The thing that I've noticed about my mentee is a change in confidence and a move more towards extroversion. She was very introverted, and now she's becoming more extroverted. She's more confident, and she's developing great interpersonal skills.
Going after Ursula, she took 2 of my answers. My mentee, she was very shy when she started, wasn't too sure about what her role was in our office. But then as she got to speak to other colleagues of ours and speaking to students, she got more confidence and has grown and developed into this young lady who's also stressing herself for her classes, but she's doing her job and excelling in classes as well. And she is innovative as well. So she comes to me and be like, "Well, I have this idea, and let's do this, and let's run with it." And I have her lead. So I'm very proud of her.
One other thing, because I work for SDM downstairs, is and there's many offices, is knowing the resources, right? Not only immediately there. I mean, we have the food pantry, we have scholarship, we have wellness. Is that getting to know all of the resources, not only right there, but in the campus, because students come in and ask about the different resources. So the student already know all of the resources. The student didn't even know going on her second semester, on her second year. So they becoming, knowledgeable about not only the resources, downstairs, but all of the resources, because the student come constantly asking about where can I find this, and the student have to learn the resources to direct the students. So knowledgeable, right there.
So next question. So how has participation in mentor-mentee jobs on campus impacted your own personal development? How has this benefited you?
For me, I was in an office where it went from 3 people to just 1. So having the mentees really helped. Building their skill set, so their soft skills, so they could talk to other students, really helped me when I was in transfer services, because they were able to help students with that application process. And I think one thing that I learned from one of my mentees is always making sure you're asking questions on how they're doing, and sometimes knowing that they're not always truthful. Unfortunately, I did have a mentee who did not do well academically, and wound up not being able to enroll in school. So just making sure that you just take care of, and you constantly ask, and you just, I guess, get not proof, but like artifacts to show that they're doing well, because you want them to do well. And it broke my heart that I didn't realize that she was struggling academically as she was.
Yes, one of the things that I continue to learn, right, is that sometimes, kind of like in the workshop, right, like you were saying, you throw all this information right from the get-go. Like sometimes guidance has to sort of be gradual, right? Because sometimes I'm throwing something to the mentee, and it's like, no, I'm not ready to do that yet, or I'm not ready to think about that yet. So I have to let the mentee develop themselves through the semester for then me to come back to that guidance, and then they're like, oh, now I get it, right? And they're ready to accept it instead of just throwing in all information right from the get-go.
Thank you. I'm William. Jorge and I both work in the library, so that's a big library thing. You can overwhelm students with too much information, just in general. Oh, the student's here for 10 minutes, let's overwhelm them. So that isn't what I talked about, but I want to talk about, but we have to be careful about that. My student, how has it impacted it just reminded me that I think my skill sets are not the same as I knew that, but this particular relationship really reinforced that. Speaking of soft skills and navigating the administrative environment that is Hostos, the different offices. So just being cognizant of that. I do like the mentoring relationship, and this student, we don't have a separate office space, so he worked 5 feet away from me and shared my office. So it was just a reminder of, we're in 2 very different places. He's a student at Hostos, and I'm a faculty member, and so just a reminder about those things, and as this person here said, I wasn't really aware of, without getting too personal, some issues he was having. I was aware of them, but he's quiet, he's super professional, And so being aware of something, but then not realizing, like anxiety, for example, like, wow, okay, or stressed out over schoolwork, or the weird professor, let's just leave it there, the professor with the odd assignment that everyone in the class was complaining about, and the stress that causes for students. So it was a little bit of an eye-opener, different than work study students, I think, because you've asked us to have these conversations. And unlike work study students, we got to pick the person, which sometimes you get assigned a work study student and it doesn't go so well. So this went great, really, really well. So thank you.
So in my specific case, this is my first time supervising someone. So going through the stage of being supervised to supervising someone has been a really great experience, and I feel like I have learned a lot as I go. I really appreciate this training, this development day, because it's super, super important to develop those skills. And also, like, I had mentors, but I never had a mentee. So like, also like that other face of the coin, right? Like, I'm doing mentee now, which I hope I'm doing this well. I appreciate this.
And so last question, what additional sources of professional development training would help to support the mentoring relationship? Any other recommendations for PDs, trainings that you would like to have?
Technology. So not even technology, more so like Excel, understanding Microsoft Teams, understanding what is it, Microsoft Office 365, right? I think a lot of our students don't know that they have that, right? And they could just log in. With our work studies and our CAs, that was a big deal. They wanted to learn more Excel. How do I pivot a table? How do I look at my call campaigns and see how I did? So that, and then for communication purposes, Microsoft Teams. Yeah.
I know you did, I wasn't present, but you did a couple things on conflict resolution, I think. Okay, but our big deal, as far as I know, with my student was not conflict resolution, more about time management and managing classes. Yeah, and homework versus coming in to work with me and trying to get whatever it is done. So I think that kind of fed into his anxiety. And I don't know what you covered in conflict management, but managing everything that's on your plate, priorities, and family, his family, things like that. So that would be great. Okay, so you're doing that today. Okay, perfect. Okay. And I would second. I mean, I'm not great on it. Oh. Okay. Well, I've got the microphone. I might get back to you on that, but what would help me? I think I told you in the interviewing process, the Zoom interviews didn't work so well for me, and I invited everyone to come in person or Zoom, and he came in person, and it really made a difference. Maybe an initial screening via Zoom, but somebody really needs to see if they're not familiar with the library, I think they really need to see it. Maybe people are interviewing in person now, so it doesn't matter, but. Oh, yeah, those are always good. Yeah, okay.
First of all, I want to say thank you, because this is the first time that we having practice that we sharing about mentoring and what works. So if we continue this to get us together and you do, sharing best practice. So what are we doing, that works? So probably we have something like this and we come together and we share what works. But definitely continue having, so we've seen a lot of mental health with our students, right? Breakdowns. I'm not a clinician, but my staff are clinician, certified social worker. And we see a lot of bipolar, So of course I'm gift, I have a gift because I got two social worker, but I know there's some of us that don't have social worker, so probably provide some professional development of how to deal when we see it, right? I mean, I go to my to counsel and be like, okay, but some of the staff are not that lucky. So how to how do they deal with it when they see it, right? So that's a big one, and we've seen it more and more, right? Our mental health is real, it's here, it's out there, and it's definitely at Hostos. So that's one, right? I mean, of course, you guys are not going to become clinician, but when we see it, how do they, deal with it in a way that is a win-win for the staff and the student, right? Because we can escalate it and we can de-escalate it. So how do we de-escalate it, in the ways that is safe? That's one. The next one is to continue supporting us. How do we support our student with what else can we provide our student when it comes to support, right? So more professional development for us in a way of, again, I said, sharing what works, but, no. No. I don't know about us being normal.
We understand each other. I wanted to piggyback on what she brought up, the director, because another issue that I'd like to see covered is disabilities. My mentee came very early to tell me, I don't want to continue with the group of students that you gave me, the cohort. I said, what happened? Don't leave me. She said, no, what happened was that the student is not getting it, is not understanding. Long story short, they were referred to ARC. So it wasn't her that she wasn't able to explain the modules. It was particularly statistics, which we know is very, very hard. So some students have disabilities, and if you're not able to identify that, then you think you're doing something wrong, and that's what she felt. So when she spoke to me about it, I said, no, don't leave Veronica. Please don't leave me. And we referred the student to ARC so that he would get special help and assistance. So I think disability would be a key area of training that we could all use to be able to identify and point it out. And what do we do, as a mentor? And the mentee too. They should come to us. Like she came to me.
Provide us more support, and I guess that's what you want to get into the PD, so that we can better support our students.
Just to piggyback on Maria, also, I think leadership, just because we're in this role, doesn't mean that we know everything. So as she said, continue to support us and also give them, help us, because sometimes we could forget, even though we're in customer service areas, but sometimes you could forget. And I think everybody could use ongoing refreshers about customer service and also communicating, because you could simply sometimes get lost as a supervisor and not always communicate things effectively, right? So just having that all the time would always help being a good mentor to a mentee.
One thing that I had, I wouldn't say a challenge, but I didn't know how to complete. I'm sorry, this may be embarrassing, but the performance evaluation for the mentee, the language. So I was really like, how do I fill out in a way? I had one of my mentees, he's no longer with me because changed job and things like that. I did not know this was a student that used to not show up. And when it came to performance evaluation, I was like, what language do I use? How do I complete this? I don't want to add something that is illegal or maybe like not said in the right way or the proper way. So I have to be honest, like I went online and I'm like, let me check which language is appropriate so I don't put something in writing that is not appropriate and then I get in trouble or, So I feel like if we get training on what type of language we should use, how to complete it, I think that will be really helpful.
think, was there, Jorge, okay, so last comment, because we have to move to the next session.
Yes. Thank you, Sophia. One very quick thing about some things that we could get some assistance with is the whole payroll thing. When I got my mentee, there was a lot of confusion with payroll. HR said one thing, payroll said another, so I had to go back and forth. I actually had to show up at the payroll office to get things worked out. I mean, that's sometimes what I have to do in Ostos. You have to just show up because people are not answering your emails, et cetera, et cetera. So I've been in CUNY for over 20 years. Like, this is the way it works sometimes. So show up at the office. But anyways, no, all jokes aside, I want to just, agree with what my colleagues said about physical and mental health and getting, sort of assistance with guiding students through that, because that I think is a real challenge. Because what I'm noticing also is, and many of us already deal with this here on campus, but that students' health emergencies in their families and economic insecurity, housing insecurity, that is also brought into these relationships and how to guide students through that. And I know some people and some of our offices have much more experience with that.
Thank you all. These are all excellent suggestions. So I will be reviewing these along with my colleagues at the Career Services Office to plan our next Career Development Day to offer you these types of workshops. And I'm so appreciative of all of the various areas and professional development needs that you've brought up, and we'll definitely take these into consideration. So thank you all for providing this great feedback. And I just want to give you all a little 5-minute break before we go to our next session that will be led by Director Lisanet Rosario. So little 5-minute break, and then we will continue.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a nice 5-minute break. I'm Lisanet Rosario, and I'm the Director of Career Services. And I've been working very closely with Dr. Sofia Oviedo and Yvonne, who's right over there, Rosario Quiros from Career Services, in helping to facilitate these activities and working with the students very closely. I was excited to hear everyone's feedback regarding the professional development, and these are absolutely the information we need to be able to come back and brainstorm. There's a lot that we can do together with our offices, as well as with financial aid and the human HR. So we'll definitely touch base to see what type of additional professional development we can provide in helping you prepare and supervising the student mentees. So thank you for sharing that. And so we're going to touch on, for my session, are on career readiness competencies. And you probably don't know what they are, maybe you've heard of them. In your handout, this is a resource for everyone, faculty, staff, and students. I have the same information that's on the slide, and you'll see the orange circles. Those are the career readiness competencies. So what the career readiness competencies are and how they came about is that employers across the nation, through the National Association of Colleges and Employers, were surveyed to identify what are the top competencies they're looking for in employees. And these were the top 8 that came about. Of course, there's a lot more, but these are the top 8. And today we're gonna learn a little more about these competencies and how we can help students identify what they're doing on the job that's relevant to these competencies, but it also helps them develop these competencies. That way, the students understand that there's a greater purpose, right? I don't expect everyone to learn everything here today. The idea is that you have this resource, you have this information. We also provide workshops for the students to go over the competencies. Also last fall, they went through a session with us, learning the competencies. But now a piece for you will be when you have conversations about tasks or when you're thinking about job descriptions, helping make those connections. So the first competency is career and self-development. Now this one is really focused more on the student self-awareness, self-assessment, What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What are areas for development? And these are conversations as you're meeting with students that you can include. So for a student to begin to become more fully aware and begin developing their career and self-development competency, just starting with a basic conversation. What are you good at? What do you enjoy doing? What do you get excited doing, right? Because that's where our strengths are mostly. And then understanding what are some areas where you find difficulty. So working in a job, for many of our students, they're first-gen professionals. Many of them haven't had a real office professional experience where you have to show up on time. Maybe you have to dress up, at least for our office, they have to dress up. So they're learning from us. And many times we set the bar, right, all the way up here, but the student may be over here and need more support. So understanding what are some of the skills that are relevant to the student, because ultimately what we want for the student to gain, right, and benefit from this experience and take it with them, that they can talk about this experience, right, that they can go to an interview and say, I worked in college discovery, I worked in athletics, this is what I did. I gained, I have strong communication skills. Why? I was working at the front desk. I was helping faculty, students, staff. I was answering questions. I was greeting. I was very professional in how I spoke to people and friendly. So they can use this experience again and take it with them. So my goal for you today is to understand what some of these competencies are. Talk to the students as you're having your one-on-one, your midterm or your evaluation, your check-in with the students, because these are staff, right? They're staff, they're students, but they're staff. So you want to make sure that you're having these conversations. The other competency that was highlighted by the employers are communication, right? That's a big one. We expect the students to be competent, right? To communicate well. What does that mean? What would you define anyone as communication skills? Personal interactions. Right? There's verbal communication, you have written communication, you have physical, like body language communication. So when you're meeting with students, and for some that you've already had for some time, you might have built a relationship. So these are conversations that you can have during that one-on-one, right? As you're mentoring and guiding the students. So I noticed that you sent an email, right? Maybe there was some grammar or some spelling. Maybe they wrote hey, right, in the email, right? It happens. But if we don't correct it, then they assume that it's okay. So in thinking about helping them develop their communication skills, right? One with writing, it's extra, maybe a little extra work, not too much, but if you're asking them to produce something for you, right? They're working on a project, they have to write something, maybe they have to do a flyer, anything that you're helping them produce, be proactive as well and talk about, okay, some of the skills that you could develop, right, just from working on these activities, contribute to your communication skills. And if they're great, right, why is it great? And if it's not so great, why is it not so great? But giving them feedback is very helpful for the student, and they can take that away, so now the next time, they'll be better prepared. Yes, the nonverbal, we're getting there. So we have the writing communication skills. We have verbal, right, communicating, speaking. Many of them might be front desk, servicing our staff, our students, people walking in from outside, depending on the department, and they may not have been trained. Again, they're these first-gen professionals that this is new. This is like, wow, I've got a job, great, now what? So it's up to us to ensure that they're able to communicate well, and how can we know if they can communicate well, right? One is, of course, we can teach, they can observe people, but then you have to have them practice it, right? Speaking, answering a question, how to tell someone who's at the front desk to just wait one moment, you know, and they'll be right with them, or, you know, just communicating. Eye contact, right? Nonverbal communication, body language. So again, if they're front-facing staff, engaging with other students, other faculty, staff, then we want to make sure that they're professional in terms of their behavior. So they're not sitting at the front slouching, they're not on their texting on their phones, you know, other things that for someone coming from the outside would appear as unprofessional. Because at the end of the day, they are there to learn, but also to meet the goals of the college, right, the mission of the college. And through all of these competencies, one of the main things and themes is that you're working together to meet those goals, you know, of the organization, of your role. So when you think of communication skills and you're meeting with students and you're working with your mentees, then these are some conversations that you can have, right? For those that are new, you'll start fresh and new. For those that have been with you for a while, do a little mini assessment, right? Find out, you know, what do I need to touch on? How can I further help the student develop these skills? But also using the terms so that they're aware of it as well. Any questions? Awesome. Okay. Critical thinking. So how can students apply critical thinking skills in the office? Many times, there may be issues that come up, right? How to solve an issue. It could be a tech issue. It could be a communication issue. The idea is that the student is thinking things through, right? Ideally, if they've had experience with using critical thinking in the workplace, they can think things through in a situation, understand who are the people involved or what are the things involved in an issue, try to assess or formulate what can be done to resolve and be able to communicate, right? So they're thinking critically to resolve an issue, or they're thinking critically working on a project. Many times students are given an assignment and they may not know what to do. They might have an idea and they'll say yes, but do they really know what they're doing, right? So again, we want students to be able to speak, use their communication skills, to think critically, to review what the project is, assess what needs to be done, and be able to ask questions regarding that project to help them fulfill, and again, meet the mission and the goals of the office. So the idea is that they're able to logically analyze the work that they're doing. And these are all things that we do every day, but now we're just connecting it to actual terms that's relevant, that's industry relevant, but that will also help the student, you know, as they enter the workforce. Then we have professionalism. Professionalism, you know, can mean a lot of things. Depends, you know, where the work environment, you know, it could be regarding your attire, what you wear to work. Are you dressed professionally? Depends where you work at. If you're working for Google, you know, you might be in a polo shirt or something very casual. If you're working in career services, you have to dress up. And we provide the clothing as well. And then some other offices can be a little more casual as well with just, you know, an office name shirt, a polo shirt. The idea is that, and what's most important in looking professionally is that they're looking clean and polished, right? That they're not messy, they're not coming in with ripped clothing. We have to send this message to them. If you allow jeans, then that's professional, because that's the attire that's recommended. But the idea is that they're dressed appropriately, whether it's matching colors for the college, if there's a theme, if there's an event, that they're all cohesive, right, in what they're wearing. The other piece on professionalism is the communication portion of it, right? being professional in their communication. So as they're speaking to other people, as they're speaking to you, I've had students that just blurt things out and, they didn't know any better. That's just how they speak to everyone. But I was able to communicate and just explain, okay, since we are, in a meeting, this is how you follow, this is what happens in a meeting, right? Because they've never been in a meeting. So being able to explain that to them so that they are also communicating professionally. In order to communicate professionally, they have to know what they're doing, right? So they have to understand the services. One of the things we do at Career Services with our work study as well is that they go through training. Just the first day is observing, going through the website, reviewing information, and observing other staff as well. Then it's meeting one-on-one. The idea is that they start getting familiar with the resources. That way, when they're ready and they're asked a question, they'll be ready to respond. And then as well as other work habits, so thinking about arriving on time, right? That's a big one. We want to make sure they arrive on time. So we have to have those conversations the same way we do with our staff, treat the students as well so that they're familiar with the process, they understand, and there's penalties, right? Because if you come late every day and we rely on you, then, if you're not there and you were expected to cover for 2 hours at the front because the other staff member had an appointment, now we have to rearrange everything, right? So knowing that we rely on them, like they are a part of this office, is really important. As well as other factors when it comes to professionalism over the phone etiquette, email etiquette. So there's a lot to cover, especially if you have them sending emails, making sure that they know how to send an email. And we have a whole presentation on email etiquette we can share with everyone if you need to reference it. And then the other is the phone etiquette. So how to answer a phone, how to transfer a call, how to put someone on hold, right? How to communicate that we're putting you on hold while also assisting someone in front. So these are all little tactics and skills that students need that they may have not been exposed to. But again, that tie into our career readiness competencies. The next one is leadership. When I speak to students about leadership, it's not about being the supervisor or the boss, I'm the leader. That's great too, of course. But leadership is about being able to work with others, understanding each other's strengths and weaknesses, being able to support other people in your group, in your team, in your office. So if you know something that I don't, right, don't hold it back, right? We're here to help each other. So I'm gonna make sure that if I know something that you don't, I'm gonna teach you, or I'm gonna explain it, because ultimately we wanna meet the goals of the office, right? We wanna achieve those goals. And then as well as thinking about their own personal and professional goals. So in those conversations that you're having, again, taking leadership on themselves, right, for themselves. What's my next step? What am I learning here? How can I use this later? As well as, thinking about taking initiative. Some students, if you don't ask, they won't do. But I know I've had a mix of both. Some that are like, I'm ready, what's next? And then some are just like, I don't know, but it's okay. Maybe they just didn't have the experience. So thinking about leadership skills in terms of the workplace and the tasks that you're providing them could be as simple as, guess what? We have our staff meeting this week. We'd like you to start with a mini presentation or something. Give them time to prepare. Talk about your major, your role here, and just give them that opportunity to present and connect with other people. And again, that helps them build those leadership skills for them, with them. Okay. Next one is teamwork. So we all say we have a great team, right? Everyone works well together, wonderful team, yay, teamwork. But the reality is that a lot of times you have a great team, but not all the time, right? It's not 100% of the time that everyone's connected and working the way it should be, right? Relying on each other, supporting each other. So the idea of teamwork and helping a student understand what it means to be in a team, right? What it means, what your role means. So for career services, these are our goals, right? This is what we want to achieve this year. Part of your role is being in our team to help support us in meeting these objectives. And how you can, and I'll let them know how you can contribute towards what we're doing here at Career Services, but not just Career Services, right? Because we're just one little office. Think of the college and the whole. You're representing an entire college, right? When you're speaking to someone and someone's arriving. So being able to work with others is a skill that takes time to learn, especially if they don't have any experience. Some students are lucky enough that they get to do group projects and work with other students, but that's when you really hear who's the one taking over, right? There's always a lead in the group projects. There's always someone who never responds to the emails. Then you have the one that says, you know what, just forget about them, we'll just do it. Because I hear it from the students, they tell us when we talk about these activities. And we want to make sure they're all contributing, right? So if you have 2 or 3 students or 1 student, that they feel that they're contributing to the office as well. Again, that it's not a separate role, it's not a siloed role that, you know, only once in the semester we come talk to you to see how you're doing. So treat it as part of the team. And also for the students to understand that they are part of this team, of this department, and of this college. The other piece is equity and inclusion. Now, what can we do to help our students be more culturally aware? We have a diverse population here at Hostos of students, of staff, faculty as well. So how can we help them be more sensitive to other cultures? And many times someone may come into an office, they may not understand why someone is asking for something in a certain way or needs something that can only be done in a certain way. So understanding about other cultures for us is very helpful for students as well. The way we can do that is let them meet the different people in the office. Have a conversation, right? What's your favorite food? What holidays do you like to celebrate? Just as simple as that, starting a conversation, just getting to know about other cultures. Thinking about the different student clubs, right? We have different student clubs that have activities as well, in addition to doing research, right? So learning about other places, other cultures. So if there is a specific need for a department, that they're aware of what those needs are. And for us to be able to build that in so that everyone feels included, right? And then the students are also understanding that we should all be inclusive and sensitive to others' needs. This, you know, we have a whole workshop on cultural competency that, you know, if you need tips and advice, we can always share with you. But the idea is that they're feeling inclusive, but that they're also aware and know who the people that they're working with are and who they're servicing, right? So that they're able to respond to questions and assist as needed. The other piece is technology, right? This is a big one. So technology, we're all using technology. Students, wherever they go now, any industry, there's some form of technology. So how are we assessing how well they are? Like, you can give a task, create something, go on the computer to sort of determine what level of computer proficiency they have. When the students come to us at Career Services for their resumes, they say they're proficient in everything. Excel, Outlook. And I'm like, oh, wait. Oh, you use Outlook? How did you use Outlook? They don't know. It's just because it says all the Microsoft programs. So many times they might think they know. Maybe one time they logged in. But we have to make sure that they know the difference between beginning level, intermediate, and proficient. So these are some of the things that we talk to them as they're building their resume and interviewing, of course, because you don't want to set the stage where an employer thinks you're highly proficient and then you start the job and you're not. And it's just a misunderstanding, right? Just a wrong use of the word. So in our offices, we can help them with their technology skills as well, right? Not that we're gonna teach every single program, but there are some basic start learning based on the projects that you offer within your offices and based on their duties that they can learn to use the technology and know what it's called, right? This is what you're using, right? Instead of, come, I'm gonna show you how to do this. But today we're using Outlook, tomorrow we're using Excel. Maybe, I don't know if you use any other software, Succeed at Ostos, you know, online systems. So those are some things that you want them to get to know the terms. And then to be able to talk about it, right? So while I worked at the library, I use X, Y, and Z, right? This technology to fulfill whatever duties or goal for that role. So again, you're helping the student understand why they're using the technology, they're learning it, they're understanding it, and then they're able to apply it and then use that later as they search for jobs. So these are the 8 competencies, and there are behaviors for each. There's sample behaviors for students, and what I'm showing you is what we go over with the students as well, so you're familiar with it. If the students have been to our workshop for career readiness competencies, they'll have gone through this. And many of the students in the fall Career Development Day also worked on activities for the career readiness competencies. So in here, and it's also in your handout, you'll see some of the sample behaviors, which includes, for career and self-development, showing an awareness of own strengths and areas of development. So this is what I touched on when I spoke about career and self-development. Understanding that self-assessment almost, like, what are my strengths, but what are some areas for development? And the way to get students talking about that is having those conversations. So as Dr. Oviedo was mentioning, that part of that professional development and coaching the students and evaluating, it's more of a conversation, right? We're not here to say, no, you're doing terrible. No, it's about learning, development. And it's okay if you first do terribly, because it's your first job. That's why we're here to teach. So part of that, again, is that awareness, but also helping them understand and see what areas of development they're in need of, because they just might not be that aware. The other piece is identifying areas for continual growth. So if you have a mentee that continues with you, I know that many have been able to continue for a couple of semesters, what's the difference from when they first started to now? Is everything still the same? Are they still having the same issues? Again, it's having those conversations to help them be aware of what are some areas of development. And the other piece is the embracing development opportunities. So maybe it's referring them to career services for a workshop. Maybe there's a workshop we don't have yet that we need to have, right? So again, as things come up with students, checking in with Dr. Oviedo, we can plan, right, for that, and also offer that professional development to students. For communication, some of the sample behaviors, as I mentioned before, is for them to understand the importance of the verbal, written, and nonverbal communication, right, and abilities. So for students to be self-aware at the front desk or when they're helping others, what is my body language? Like, are my arms crossed? You know, do I look angry, or, you know, I'm not happy, I had a bad day. You know, we all have bad days, but it's helping them understand that we try to keep that to the side, right? Come in, we're happy to be here at Hostos, and be able to produce the work they need to do. And I also wanted to highlight the asking appropriate questions, because if they don't know what to ask, like, they need to be a little more specific. Sometimes, you're laughing. You have an example? Oh, okay. Yeah, so sharing personal information. Although sometimes I can understand, like maybe there's a holiday party or there's a break. You know, personal conversations come about. We see each other every day. We spend a lot of time together, so it can happen. I don't know about asking for advice or anything like relationship advice, but definitely sometimes we share information. I think that's okay. If a student shares information about their recent child or birthday, you know, that's great. We just want to make sure it doesn't get too personal, because sometimes, you know, those barriers, the supervisor, you know, mentor, mentee, we don't want to overstep those boundaries. And yeah, so helping them understand like what to ask. Maybe they don't know what to ask. So again, helping them develop that skill. And we talked about critical thinking. One of these that I wanted to highlight was accurately summarizing and interpreting data with an awareness of personal biases that may impact outcomes. So sometimes students are given a project to work on. They have to be able to review, right, this data, this information that has just been given to the student, and be able to assess without any prior biases, right? Because maybe they might be involved in something that maybe as a student, they were on the other end, right? So we have to be aware that that can happen, and how that may impact, you know, what is being produced. So leaving out, again, personal biases regarding any of the work that's happening, and focusing that they are the staff member now, right? They're producing this work, they're able to review this data or information, interpret it, and think critically. We spoke about professionalism before, and again, there's a listing of many of the sample behaviors. So one of the bullets here is showing a high level of dedication towards doing a good job, right? We see that a lot. I see a lot of students like I'm here, like, you know, I have students that show up before some of my staff show up in the morning, and they're just very excited. They're showing that enthusiasm for work, and they don't even realize that that's part of professionalism. Like, that's just natural for them to do. So again, making those connections with them. And if they're not doing that, you know, they should at least arrive a little early. So those are conversations to have. The other piece we spoke about were leadership skills. Here, as a mentee, right, you can serve as a role model to others. So as a student mentee, they can also serve as a role model. If you've had a mentee for 2 semesters and then you get a new one, guess what? The one that you did all that training with could now actually assist you with the next student. Or if you've had 2 already, have them work together, right? Do some projects, some brainstorming projects that they can do together. And again, that's to help them develop their leadership skills. Teamwork. I'm gonna stress the collaborating with others to achieve common goals, right? Again, because as a team, that's the goal. And we wanna make sure the students are feeling part of the team. We're here to all work together and achieve the common goal of the office and the college. We touched on equity and inclusion. And I would focus on advocating for inclusion, equitable practices, justice, and empowerment for historically marginalized communities, which is where we are, right? So understanding that, to be inclusive of others, to be sensitive of others, but we're the role models, right? So we have to make sure we're also being inclusive of others. And again, last but not least, the technology. So being able to learn, quickly adapt to technology. If they're having challenges, there might be workshops through EdTech, through the college that could be offered. Working with other departments might be helpful as well. But the idea is that we're helping the students learn. So I'm hoping that you can take these competencies with you, use it as you're working with the students and your mentees, help them make those connections in the office and to the work that they're doing, because they're gonna value the work more knowing that they're part of the team and they're actually working towards a common goal. So I'd like to open it up if you have any questions now, and I will be available after as well. If you would like to further the conversation, and I'd be happy to schedule an appointment with you as well. Thank you.
My student in particular didn't really want to work with people, so he chose, we've experienced this before in the library. Some positions you're at a desk, at a counter helping people, and other positions are, back of the house. But he made it very clear he wanted a lower stress, hopefully lower stress, but not dealing in a customer service type counter position. So, which was fine, that worked out. But so that's one reason I think students look for certain environments. They maybe don't want to work with people, or they only want one person to work with. I'm sure everyone in the room has experienced that, but he was very clear about it. So it worked out in this case. That's all. Sure.
Thank you.
Lisa, but I just wanted to say, thank you for helping us see, like from every of the competencies, how we can apply it to the students, right, to our mentees. So that was helpful, because at first when you were going over, I couldn't clearly see how to apply it, but when you broke it down and say, in teamwork, how to, have it applied to the student. I mean, I love the one that you said, how the assistant student can help us guide the new mentees. I mean, I wouldn't even think about that, right? Because you always think you are the one who needs to do that. So thank you, because now I can really clearly see how the competencies, how we can use that with our mentees. So thank you, that was really good.
Thank you. You might be able to use it with your staff too.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I just wanted to say, William, thank you for sharing that point regarding the student preferences of where to work. We actually did a session in the last Career Development Day on personality types, right? Because not everyone is the same. Not everyone wants to do the same work. Understanding what it is they like to do, they may not know at first, right? Some students are more introvert, some are more extrovert. They want to be out working with everyone and engaging, versus students who are more introvert and prefer quiet time, maybe working directly on a project on the computer, and they enjoy that, right? So a lot of times you may think it's not a good fit, but it's not really that the student may not be a good fit. It just may be that their preference or their working style is not a good fit for your office. So these are just some things to be aware of. Thank you. Thank you, William, for sharing that.
Thank you so much, Director Rosario, for that wonderful presentation. Being that we are at 12:30, I'm just going to quickly provide an overview of the evaluation tools that we will be using for this semester. And then I will schedule a Zoom meeting for all the mentors so that I can go over the tools in more depth and be able to answer any questions, and also address one of the issues that Lenny raised with regard to, what language do I use to write an evaluation. So I'm just briefly going to hand out the mid and end semester mentee evaluation that all the mentors will be using this semester, which are aligned with all of the career readiness competencies. And I will also email it in preparation for our Zoom evaluation workshop. Let me just, if you could help pass these around, that would be great. Let me just get. So very quickly, what I've shared with you is, I know for the last 2 semesters, I had shared a different form of evaluation that was also aligned with the career readiness competencies. What I would like to implement this semester is for the mentors, is a mid-semester evaluation and an end-of-semester evaluation, so that we can assess the students' growth through the semester across the 8 career readiness competencies. So that is what you will see here. You see in this evaluation each career readiness competency, the definition, and how to assess whether the mentee is demonstrating those particular skills for that particular career readiness competency. And then you would do this at the midpoint of the semester and then at the end of the semester. The evaluation also provides space for you to also identify areas where the mentee has shown growth, has shown accomplishments, achievements, and also areas where the mentee can also improve. And this is an evaluation that would also be shared with the mentee. So after you've done this like midpoint evaluation, you would sit with your mentee to go over the evaluation and go over each of the 8 career readiness competencies to address them, and so that you can have this mutual conversation on your assessment and have the mentee's feedback. So this is done both at the midpoint and the end of semester. So that is the key evaluation tool that we're going to use, a new one that we'll use this semester. I also have emailed the mentors the feedback survey, where you also provide your assessment of the mentee's performance and progress and your own experience in the Mentor-Mentee Jobs on Campus initiative. So that is very important for mentors to complete. I will resend out that link again. It's an online survey. And I've also sent out a mentee survey because we want to hear from our mentees in terms of their own experience in the program, what they're learning, how it's really helping them to develop career readiness skills. We want to learn what they are learning through that mentor-mentee relationship. So that I've also emailed to the students, and I will also resend again so that I want to have 100% participation for both mentors and mentees. So those are 2 additional tools that we are currently using to assess the effectiveness of this initiative. And then lastly, something new that I also want to do this semester is to have focus groups with the mentors and with mentees, just to, in small groups, to be able to get, more in-depth and rich feedback on the process, get your own recommendations for how we can better improve the program. Because I believe that this is a new initiative, but your input and your feedback is instrumental into how we implement it. And it's really just working together to put forth a program that will provide the best benefit for our students and also for you as well, and the departments that you are also running. So that's just a brief overview of the evaluation tools, but as I mentioned, I will also host an evaluation workshop via Zoom, where we can go through these tools in more depth. And then I can answer more your questions and help you in terms of how to complete them. How does that sound to everyone? Yes, question.
How different is this form? You said this one's new, or is this the same one we used, or is it slightly different?
No, it's different. You are assessing student.
My student had never had an evaluation, so he's like, this is the first evaluation I've ever had. So that was interesting, and it was fine. We did it together. We just sat in the office and did it, but I was like, oh, really? But he's had other jobs, but I guess never an evaluation. So that was interesting.
Also another learning opportunity to know what this entails, and to make it not as anxiety producing as it can be, but it's really to help them grow and learn more about themselves.
I don't know if we're out of time, but I gave this, or whatever the previous form was, to my student, and in advance, and I said, you answer these questions first, and then we'll talk about it. I think that was better for him because it didn't create this anxiety situation of an evaluation. We're sitting down and I'm going to criticize you. And so he had time to think about it, which I wanted him to create the answer. Like, how do you think you're doing? Before I said, here's how I think you're doing. And it seemed to work pretty well, but I'll have to ask him if he thought that worked well. So, okay.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, we'll end the mentor session at this point. I want to thank all of the mentors for coming out. I also want to invite you, you can stay, have lunch with your mentee. You can stay for the afternoon session as well if your schedule permits. You are welcome to stay for the rest of the afternoon with us and continue learning and growing with us. So I want to thank you all again for coming out and participating, and I will be following up with the next steps on the evaluation workshop. Thank you all again.